And while acknowledging that it's much easier to manage if Seth Lugo's going out there and doing what he's doing while the offense gives you 7 runs of support, you know what? Put this thing on cruise control. Let's go to some guys to eat up some innings. Call it a day. We'll see you guys tomorrow afternoon or tomorrow morning. When it's 1-0 and your offense isn't doing anything and they're getting, essentially shut down by, a replacement level player and your bullpen is not reliable, then those decisions that you make start to add up, and they are bigger decisions. They make a more impactful, effect on the game. And when we're talking about the Royals making trades within the margins, like they're not going to go out and make some big acquisition, right, and just everything's going to be fixed. They're going to have to win in the margins. A game like that, the Royals' decisions have to win in the margins, and hopefully you find a way to win that game. And they did not. Was it all a decision by Matt Quatraro? No, it wasn't all a decision by Matt Quatraro. Is it Monday morning quarterbacking? No. Is it second guessing? No, because it's Sunday during the game quarterbacking, and it's first guessing. Because it's pre-frustration, pre-skepticism of the decision before we even see the result.
Sure.
And I don't think there's anybody that was watching, Sterling, or anybody in that stadium when Carlos Hernandez came out in the 7th inning with the Royals up 1-0, that he was going to leave the mound with the Royals still leading by 1. I had zero faith. Zero faith. And maybe that's where my frustration came in, is that Lugo pitched so well. He was at 87 pitches. He had only, 6 innings. He had been mowing down the Marlins. He had 1 inning in which he, had to go out there and work, which we'll get into a little bit. And the offense just could not get anything going. And even when it felt like they were going to get something going, they shot themselves in the foot. Bobby Witt's rounding second, not even looking, just expecting Michael Garcia. And I appreciate Bobby busting his butt out of the box every time. So it is hard for me to sit there and go, you know what, Bobby, one of the guys that's playing awesome, like what a mistake. He would tell you it's a mistake. A tough read by Michael Garcia. But if you're going to go for a triple and there's a guy in front of you, you probably have to look up before you round second full speed.
Yeah.
You probably have to make sure that guy got sent. And even that results in no runs when it should have been second and third with 1 out, and feeling like, all right, now you got something going, a walk, a double, here you go. And they ran themselves out of that inning. And then Carlos Hernandez comes out there, and 2 plays that should be made, 2 plays that have been made all year when the Royals were winning these games, were not made. And then an 0-2 pitch that's a liner back to the pitcher, and he throws it into right field. When it would have been bases loaded and 2 outs, you eat it. You don't have to panic. Eat it. You're a veteran. You've been pitching since 1982. Like Will Smith has been around for a while. No reason to throw that into right field and panic. It's still 1-1. It's still a tie game. You get another chance. And instead, you're down 2-1, and you lose the game. And it was a night that, offensively, Sterling, when they were up there, I was just getting annoyed. Watching Seth Lugo pitch was fun and brilliant, and then everything past the 6th inning was just maddening. Maddening.
Well, you could tell how mad I was when I texted you guys during the game, and they forced me to drink. Yeah, Kansas City Royals, you made me bust open some bourbon. That's on you. You gave me a nice excuse.
Earlier than you would have.
Yeah, I was going to wait until like a celebratory post-game bourbon, but no, you made me drink during the game. How dare you? That game was so damn frustrating. I don't have a major issue. I know I'm in the minority here of Seth Lugo coming out after 6. He threw 27 pitches in that inning. He got out of it, obviously, but it wasn't necessarily the prettiest way. Yeah, he struck out the last guy. Josh Bell kind of squared one up. I thought maybe 6 was a good call Just the issue is the bullpen is so bad that it's always going to look like a bad call from Q because the bullpen, as you mentioned, is atrocious. When you turn to Hernandez, you know it's getting, like you mentioned, you know he's giving that up. There's zero chance in my mind, your mind, in the majority of Royals fans' mind that they're leaving up one when he comes in. Give up a lot of hard contact. But he throws 99, Jason. But he throws 99.
He does throw hard. His stuff plus is actually stuff minus. I'm not sure, but he does throw hard.
Just got shelled. It's just frustrating. Yeah, C.J. Alexander looking like a AAA player at the plate as well as in the field. Maikel Garcia makes those plays, but Maikel Garcia had a chance at second base. Again, that ball was hit hard. It wasn't necessarily routine, but we've seen Maikel Garcia make much tougher plays in the past. Airmails the throw. Vinny, I would love to see it again. Looked like he maybe had a chance. He heard the footsteps. Obviously, he was going to get hit either way, so it's very hard to tell a first baseman, hey, you're getting hit either way, so hold on to the football. It's like a receiver, right? Like going over the middle. You're getting hit either way. It's either going to be incomplete or you come down with the ball. Which one do you want? Because either way, you're getting hit. So that was interesting there. It was just one of the more frustrating games I have watched because you're going up against a guy, Yanni Chirinos, a typical relief pitcher, by the way. Like, that was basically the Marlins game plans. We're throwing out basically a relief pitcher, and somehow they're going to come away with a victory. Because everyone knows Yanni Chirinos can't face him. Prime Shohei Ohtani out here. Healthy DeGrom. That's Yanni Chirinos, because that's what the Royals made him look like last night.
Let's play Matt Quattrero here from last night, talking about the decision. And yes, Sterling, you and I disagree. I hated the decision, and I'll get into the reasons why. I mean, I understand those that look at it and think opposite, but I have my reasons and why I thought in the moment, while also bigger picture, it was the wrong decision twice. But here's Matt Quattrero last night talking about Seth Lugo and then the decision to go to Carlos Hernandez.
Pitched extremely well. The last inning he threw close to 30 pitches. So that was probably the deciding factor. Combine that with the heat and where they were in the batting order and how we felt about Carlos in that situation. So all those things factored in.
How did you feel about Carlos, and what did the matchup say, I guess, about that spot? Yeah,
well, we like Carlos. We think that's a good spot for him. And if we need Carlos to be able to do that. And, he gave up the double, and they move him, the guy gets the third, and then we get a ground ball. And a lot of times we make that play. Tonight we didn't, and it got away from us in that inning. But, he threw the ball well. And, it's never an easy decision with Lugo because he's so good, but we also have to be mindful of the weather and how many innings he's throwing and how many starts. All those kinds of things factor in.
Okay, so that last part we can get into because it is something that we have talked about. And it's something that I've pointed out and wondered about, long term. We talked to Jeremy Guthrie about that last week. We talked to him and mentioned that, the most innings he's pitched in his career is 140. And, that was last year. And before that, it was like 80. So, this is something to monitor and keep an eye on. Okay, I'll come back to that. I'm not sure what they like in Carlos Hernandez in that situation. He's like, we like Carlos Hernandez. What, is a nice guy? Like, you like him? What, does he bring you flowers from time to time? Does he bring you chocolates? Does he
chocolates.
Always remember your birthday? Does he remember your kids' names? Like, he might be that guy. He might be awesome. Great dude to be around. That's really cool, and that's really neat, and that might be a fun story for you to tell your kids about one day of what it was like to be around this guy. I have no idea, but the other team gets to tell their kids about the home runs and hits and RBIs they had when they played the Royals or whatever in their career because Carlos Hernandez is out there pitching. Like, I'm not sure. There's a number of things to me that went into the decision as to why I thought it was a mistake. If you're looking at your bullpen and saying, we're a little taxed for the different guys that have thrown, and Carlos Hernandez is a guy that at some point probably should be able to do those things, like, that's fine. I get the thought process of he's in the bullpen, he should be able to come through in a situation like that, but he hasn't. And if he can't, it stops being the player's fault. and it starts being the coach's fault for putting said player in that position. Some point you've got to learn from that. And there are 5 or 6 different things that lead me to Seth Lugo staying in the game. Let's hear Seth Lugo after the game was over, talking at his locker in the clubhouse about his outing and whether or not he could have stayed in the game.
Hurts to not get the win there, but I'm pleased with my performance.
How did you feel after the 6th, a long inning, and on a night like tonight when it's pretty hot and buggy out?
I felt pretty good. That's a tough part of their lineup. After a leadoff walk, I really bared down and made sure to keep executing pitches and not give in. So, especially with the temperature and the humidity, it's easy to get tired and get unfocused. But I stayed focused and made pitches, so I'm happy with that.
Do you feel like you could have gone one more? Do you understand the decision, I guess, to turn it over to the bullpen at that point?
As far as the climate, I understand the thought process, but, absolutely, we trained for this, I was prepared to get back out for the 7th, and, just didn't happen, so, that's just what it is.
Wow.
So I love Seth Lugo, and I love hearing that. And if he'd have said the exact opposite of, man, I was gassed, I would have a different feeling about this. I'd be like, all right, should you have gone to Carlos Hernandez? Okay, that's a different conversation about who you go to in the 7th inning. But when he said, I felt good, I understand the climate, there were 4 words there that gets me pumped that Seth Lugo is in a Royals uniform for at least one more year before the option that he has for year number 3 at $15 million, which if he pitches like this next year, then there's 0 chance he would return on a $15 million deal for 1 year. So at least for next year, 4 words that he said there when asked about that. We trained for this. Like, hey, Q, this is why we put in the work, is for this. If I could only go 80 innings, I wouldn't train as hard to go 100. If it was always going to be 50 and 60 degrees, then I wouldn't have to train as hard to be able to make it through an inning, make it through a game, one more inning when it's 90 degrees outside. Baseball's played in the heat, so we have to train for these situations. We train for this. I felt good. Yeah, I understand the climate, but this is what we train for. We train for this. That sentence by Seth Lugo told me all I need to know about him, in that, 1, I was good to go, and 2, I've put in the work to be in this position, to go back out there for the 7th. I've done the work to be here for you to believe in me, Skip, for you to put me back out there. This is what we do. I understand the decision. That's fine. It's your decision. But this is the work I put in for this. And the game was out of my control once I was taken out of the game, and you went to the bullpen in a guy that you can't really rely on.
Yeah,
I loved hearing that from Lugo.
Yeah, it felt pretty telling on his thoughts, at least. That's about as bold it feels like a player's going to get in regards to a manager's decision there. I liked it from Seth Lugo. Again, I had the same 4 words. We trained for this. We trained for this. Let him do what he has trained to do. Again, I do understand Q's thought process. For me, it was weather-related less, right? I don't care about the heat and humidity. That doesn't bother me. To me, it was the 27 pitches in that last inning. But Seth Lugo even mentioned it. Hey, after that leadoff walk, which was 9 pitches, he bared down, got another 9-pitch strikeout of Jazz Chisholm. And then after that, it was 9 pitches for the final 2 outs. I get it. I understand both situations here. The issue is, if the bullpen was good, I think you for sure take Seth Lugo out. But the bullpen being as bad as it is, that's why you have this question. Obviously, Seth Lugo, I love when he goes, I feel like I played pretty well. I love that, too, the honesty. It's not him going, yeah, I could have done some things differently. Like, no, I couldn't have. I did 6 innings, 0 runs. What more do you want from me, guys? I'm putting the team on my back here. My back's hurting. I love that post-game interview with Lugo right there.
Well, and I think there's a micro and a macro to the decision last night, and I'm on board with keeping Lugo in the game with both the micro and the macro. The micro view of last night's game is the bullpen might be taxed. Okay, so Stratton's pitched 2 of the last 3 nights, all right? Schreiber pitched the night before. And maybe you were saving Will Smith for later on. Zerpa got hit around. Sam Long, got hit around. So it's like, all right, we're going to go with Carlos Hernandez. He's the guy that's available there in the bullpen. Okay, well, if he's the answer, then I want a different question. Okay, so if he's the answer, then the question should be, why am I staying with Seth Lugo in the 7th inning? Well, because of Carlos Hernandez. Ding, 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 ding. That's right. That's why I'm staying with Seth Lugo for 1 more inning. And the 27 pitches in the 6th inning, okay, that's fine. He had 20 pitches in the 5th inning. If you flip those, is that an issue? If he only had 20 pitches in the 6th, if he had 27 pitches in the 4th inning and 20 pitches in the 6th inning, is that an issue? He didn't have to go back out there for the next batter. They didn't take him out in the middle of the inning and say, man, he was already at 27 pitches. He was gassed. He was out there. It was hot. He got to sit down for 10 minutes. 10 minutes is a while to sit down between innings when you're training for this. He walks off the field. He goes and sits in the dugout. He's in the shade. He gets some cooling, fans on him. And then 10 minutes later, he goes back out there to pitch again. I don't think that's enough for you to say he has to come out of the game. And this decision, to me, represents so many of this year. There is an element of you have to trust your bullpen. Yes, you do at some point. But your team is playing like ass right now. Your team sucks. And if you're the manager and you know your team sucks right now, you have fallen out of a wild card spot. You've given up 7 games in the last 2 weeks in the wild card. You're no longer in the postseason. You're playing a crappy Marlins team. You're up 1-0. And my decision is I got Carlos Hernandez to come in the bullpen or Seth Lugo with 87 pitches to pitch the 7th. That's an easy decision. That is writing your name on the test. That's not the toughest part. That's not the essay. That's the gimme. That you write it down. It's easy. Seth Lugo, my team has to win right now. That is a 162 view, not acknowledging how crappy your team is. Not acknowledging what your team is doing right now. Hell, you're the one managing it. You should know that they're playing like crap. You should know that they suck. You should know they're not going to score another run. 1 run ends the game for you. It's going to be tied until the Marlins get another run. Your offense can't do anything. They went 25 innings without scoring a run. They got 4. Badass. Now they're the 27 Yankees. You got 4 runs. Oh, my God, break them up. The best offense we've seen in history. They got 4 runs off the crappy Marlins. And then you got one run through 6 innings. And you thought, we're good. We're good. If this is really about you've got to manage the whole season, okay, great. Your team was down 4-0 to the Yankees with Carlos Rodon on the mound. And you sent Lugo back out there for the 7th when he already had 90 pitches. Why? This is the full season, right? You really think your team was coming back? That's when you throw Carlos Hernandez. That's when you throw your scrubby pitchers. You've already lost that game. But you kept him in for 1 more inning. You wasted an inning, and you wasted pitches. And now's the game against the Marlins? Now's the time where you go, well, it's a long season. It is. So get his ass out against the Yankees. It is a long season.
I love this from you, Jason. I am so thrilled you have joined me on the dark side of come on, there are expectations.
Like I said, infuriating last night.
Yes, Jason.
Infuriating last night.
You see how I felt the past 2 weeks. Thank you. Welcome. That's how I've watched every game, it feels like. And you were laissez-faire until last night. And now you're understanding the
Because there's a sense of urgency now.
Yeah.
There's a sense of urgency in yesterday's game where you have to win that game. And Carlos Hernandez can't be the guy you go to when your team is struggling, when you got a 4-game set against the Guardians coming up, and the Marlins are terrible. Like, you should be thinking sweep against the Marlins. Not win the series, which hopefully they do today. It ain't exactly a must-win game today, but it's kind of a can't lose. It's not a must-win, but you can't lose it against the Marlins today. Losing 2 of 3 to that bad team. When your offense can't do anything against a subpar 4A pitcher that's out there. And if you wanted to go to Carlos Hernandez, here's another issue in that particular decision, that inning, that game last night. If you want to go to Carlos Hernandez in that situation, C.J. Alexander's coming up third in the bottom of the seventh. Puck is on the mound. He just carved through Vinny and Michael Massey, lefties. His previous 2 outings, he's gone multiple innings. You think he's coming out of the game, Q? You think they're bringing in somebody else when he just looked like that? And you've got MJ Melendez and then C.J. Anderson up first and third in the or C.J. Alexander coming up first and third in the next inning. Are you going to pinch hit for C.J. Alexander if Puck's still in the game? Yes, you are. And if you're going to do that, then get Michael Garcia over to third, put Nick Lofton at second, and if you got to go to Carlos Hernandez, put your best defense behind him. Instead, you got a 4A player out there at third base that can't handle a 93-mile-an-hour, ground ball. It was a tough hop, but I'd love to see if Michael Garcia can handle that. I don't know that Nick Lofton gets over to that ball that Garcia got to. But if Garcia fields the ball at third, it wouldn't have mattered because the man wouldn't have been on base with 2 outs. There would have been 3 outs in the inning. So if you're going to say, now's the time against the Marlins with a 1-0 lead where we got to worry about long-term health of Seth Lugo, not getting our face beat in by the Yankees so we can steal an inning with Seth Lugo out there on the mound to get to 102 pitches. Apparently the cool breeze of a 40-degree night against the Yankees, sure. If you're going to do that, and last night is when you decide now you need to restrict that, then you can't have C.J. Alexander at third. You got to have somebody else in there. And it can't be Carlos Hernandez, sorry. Put in Stratton. Well, Stratton's pitched twice in the last 3 games. Yeah, a total of 26 pitches. He came in the 7th inning, leading by, Royals were up by 3. He came in the 7th inning, down 1 against Texas over the weekend. 15 pitches and 11 pitches. 26 pitches. Enough to say Stratton gets the night off? How about this? Give him today off. Give him today off. You may not need him today. What if you put 10 runs on the board? You may not need him. I bet you'd like to have that inning back last night. I've liked a lot of things that Q has done. And I've complimented him on a lot of things that Q has done this year. This is not a Q is the problem. This is a bad decision in the moment that for whatever reason, looking at the bigger picture of the season became more important in this game, in a 1-run game, than 2 weeks ago against the Yankees when you were losing by 4. With Rodon on the mound in the 7th inning. That doesn't make sense. And my concern moving forward, dude, is not necessarily the result of last night. It's the fact that Quatraro thought that was the right move. That's the bigger concern for me.
Well, let's be real, Jason.
In that moment, he said, Hernandez, that's the guy we're going to go to.
Q is the rug, right? Q would be the rug that really ties the room together. He really ties this team together.
I'm perfectly fine with Quatraro as the manager. I want Quatraro to continue to be the manager. I would like for him to have better resources around him. But in a situational game like that, the resources at your disposal, it's how you utilize those and how you put those into play. And last night he used a guy that shouldn't be in that situation, and he took out a guy who should be in that situation. And he left in a guy who shouldn't be at third base right now with the team struggling like it is. More Zone next. via text line at J810 Anderson on Twitter is where you can find it there as well. So I promised myself I wasn't going to cry today. Like I really said, like, you know what, I'm cool, calm, I'm fine now. I was frustrated last night, and then sort of just, today, let's get into the show. Let's talk about what the decisions were, and let's discuss why those decisions may have been made. And I can't get over the thought process of a couple of weeks ago after the Yankees game when we discussed it and said, hey, we need to keep an eye on Lugo's innings and pitches and everything. And yeah, I guess you commend him for giving up 4 runs early and still going out there and pitching 7 innings. But, 100 pitches when you're down 4-0 and your offense is doing nothing against Rodon. If we're talking about a long season, that would have been a game to steal an inning. And then 2 weeks later for Matt Quatrero to go, well, it's a long season. We've got to make sure that, it's health and it's hot outside. Like, really, that's the exact opposite. Last night is when you push it. The Yankees is when you get them out and steal an inning and have somebody else come in the game. Those are opposite views of how it should be done with a pitcher, a guy that you're hoping to protect. And I don't want to, injure Seth Lugo, but the issues in the bullpen and Seth Lugo's 87 pitches and him feeling ready, like all of those are reasons why I would have stayed with him. Like I would have gone with him. And the point about C.J. Alexander too, Sterling, is this gets into the conversation we had, I think it might have been a month ago. Les Norman was in, so it was me, you, and Les talking. And the question that I posed to the group was about the offense struggling at the time. But we said, with the offense struggling the way that it is, but the pitching being so good and the defense being the best in baseball, how much, if at all, do you sacrifice some defense to try to inject some offensive firepower into the offense, into the lineup? And do you mess with that? You're winning, you're performing well, and defensively, you are amazing. How much do you mess with that? And we had that discussion. And last night, to me, and the decision with C.J. Alexander at third and Michael Garcia at second, and mind you, I am going to remind people that I already said I liked the move. I liked the idea of trying to figure something out to help jumpstart the offense. But the question would be, and the knowledge for the Royals front office coaching staff would be how good C.J. Alexander is as a third baseman defensively. And I think we get an idea of how good he is at third base when they've put him at first base at times and they've moved him to a corner outfield spot in AAA too. I mean, if he was unbelievable at third base, they wouldn't have him playing 2 different positions. So you acknowledge you're giving something up defensively. That Garcia at third is a stud. At second, he's also really, the range is amazing, but it's not a position he's played predominantly in his career. He's played the left side of the infield. So a tough play when he's going to his left and opens up his body and he throws the ball, away from Vinny, as opposed to being on the left side of the infield. I think we got an idea of C.J. Alexander defensively in that slow roller that was the first hit they gave up when it took them a long time to get to that ball. And then the decision where it looked like a Sunday hop that maybe glove, exchange, throw it with a little more firepower on balance to maybe get the runner at first, as opposed to I'm going to barehand it, fall to my right and throw the ball off balance, offline, and pretty weakly there. Like that I saw that and I'm like, uh-oh. All right, so they are giving up something defensively. Let's see what they can get offensively. And that was sort of my frustration with keeping him in the game in the 7th inning, because I think there has to be an acknowledgement that your offense is struggling. He ain't the one injecting the life into the offense, so let's put the best defense behind him. Plus, you were probably going to pinch hit for him the next inning if Puck was still in the game. He wasn't in the game. You kept C.J. Alexander in the game because there was a right-hander that they faced against Renfroe. And you kept him in the game. That's fine. But there were so many decisions specifically with that game and then bigger picture that I just had a problem with. And again, they might have left Seth, and I acknowledge too, it's baseball, Sterling. He might have left Seth Lugo in the game and Lugo gave up 3 runs.
Yeah.
And then people would be saying, why'd you leave Lugo in the game? Not me. I would be saying, you left Lugo in the game because he had 87 pitches and your bullpen is not good. And the last time he left Lugo in the game, if we think back to that Cleveland series, when he ends up throwing 6+ innings of 5 earned runs. He had pitched 6 innings and given up 3 earned runs. And the second guessing and the frustration at that time was that Lugo had thrown 92 pitches. You put him out back out there, a double and a home run happens, and all of a sudden it's 5-5. And now there's an issue there, and then there's the misplay by Bobby Witt at shortstop when it could have been just stepping on second base, but the ball was thrown into the thrown away from Vinny. But at that point, people were going, "Why'd you stay with Lugo?" He already threw 92 pitches, and he was struggling. That's the difference. He was laboring through those 6 innings. He had thrown 92 pitches, but he sent him back out there because he didn't trust his bullpen. And then you go, well, he learned this go-round. No, because he labored through those 6 innings. He labored through those 92 pitches. He was cruising except for 1 inning. And even in that inning, the last 3 batters took him 9 pitches to get out of it. Like that's just different situations, different scenarios that I think have to be acknowledged when you're there.
I agree with that. And back to C.J. Alexander for a moment here.
Yeah.
That play at third was brutal. It looked like me in my beer league softball, like you're lumbering almost. And in your mind, you're like, wow, I look like an athlete out here as you're throwing the ball well away from the first baseman. But you feel like you look cool. That was just, yes, you're right. When I saw that play, I go, okay, so he's not a plus defender at third. That ain't his game. There's another play at third. Again, not a great hop, but you're right. Michael Garcia, I think 9 times out of 10 makes that play.
We see him make that play all the time.
I mean,
he's that good.
Again, Garcia is one of the best defensive third basemen in baseball, so maybe it's unfair, but I think an average third baseman defensively makes that play more times than not. It didn't even look like C.J. Alexander was necessarily close on that play. Again, it's a little unfair when you're seeing what he's done with the bat so far. I do completely agree, though, with you in regards to if A.J. Puck's going 2 innings, which it looked like he was going to, or at least come out for the second, well, that means that he's going to face C.J. and you're going to pinch hit for him, right? Or at least that's the thought process. Mm-hmm. So what would you do, though? So you're saying you'd move Garcia back to third. That's the obvious one. Do you then move Garrett Hampson to second base?
I bring in Nick Lofton to second. And I put Nick Lofton in C.J. Alexander's spot. And therefore, if Puck's in the game, Nick Lofton's batting after Renfroe. And so I got 2 righties up there. And so if they want to bring a lefty in, that's fine. If they're going to go to a righty, well, that's fine. Renfroe and Nick Lofton hit against righties all the time. So I bring Nick Lofton in, take C.J. Alexander out of the game, put him at second base. I still have Hampson to pinch hit if I need to.
Sure.
He pinch hit for MJ Melendez to start the next inning against Puck. He pinch hit for Michael Massey in the 9th inning against Tanner Scott. Like he always tries to find the advantage in the left-right matchup, like the platoon matchups of the lefty versus righty, righty versus lefty. And I don't have an issue with that, for the most part. I don't. And, that's where sort of it comes in that last night seemed to be incongruent with some decisions that were made earlier in different games. And, it's one thing to learn from those, but I think that the lesson wasn't really received from those particular games. The lesson from the Yankees game was get them out when the game is not really within reach and don't make them go an extra inning. The lesson in the Cleveland game was he labored through 6 innings and through 92 pitches, get them out, and I guess you got to go to your bullpen and hope that they can hold the lead. But Lugo had struggled in that game to get through it. The lesson in this one, he was cruising. He was cruising, and you didn't have a couple of your better pitchers available, at least it seemed that way last night, then throw him out there for one more. One decision doesn't make or break a season, and one decision doesn't make the game, because the Royals offense certainly had their it is okay, Sterling, for the Royals offense to score more than 1 run.
Yeah,
so that is also something where, Quattrero was like, yeah, I'm trying here, and I know he is. He doesn't want to lose the game, but there are games where you just have to find a way to get through when your team isn't playing well. And the team is playing so terribly right now And it's the Marlins. You got to win that game. You got to find a way to do it. And if that's Lugo going an extra inning, great. Then I'll steal an inning, later on. I'll tell you this: if he's in a close game against the Guardians this weekend, I don't want to hear about it's a long season, etc. No, you took him out against the Marlins. Let's see if he's a workhorse this weekend against the Guardians.
That would be intriguing. Although they're going to need him to do the exact same thing against the Guardians because the Guardians' pitching is a lot better than, surprisingly, Yanni Chirinos. So just throwing that out there.
Well, Enrique Palazzo is going tonight, right?
No, it's actually
Enrico Palazzo?
It's Enrique Iglesias, the ping pong song guy.
No, it's Frank Drebin is playing the role of Enrico. Oh, Valente Balazzo, not Enrico Palazzo. Sorry. Valente Balazzo is going today for the Marlins, making his major league debut, and a guy who has been a stud in the minor leagues the last 2 years, pitching to a 5.5 ERA and a 5.02 ERA this year. So he has been...
so Cy Young tonight is what you're saying,
yep.
Or today, yeah.
Yep, he has been... he has just been dealing down in the minors, a 5.5 last year and a 5.02 this year. So Royals really have their work cut out for him against a guy who's making his major league debut who apparently isn't even very good in the minors. We'll take a timeout and more so next. Men, if you're out there and you have issues and are dealing with some of the issues with erectile... Your initial visit's only $99. It includes a medical consult with a licensed medical provider, a T and a PSA test, and if medically advised, a test dose. And if the test dose doesn't work in the office, your visit is free. They have an expert staff, and if you're like a lot of men, you could be performing the day after your appointment. They have 3 locations to serve you: Overland Park, Independence between Blue Springs and Lee Summit. It's right by Cable Dahmer Arena. And the new office in North Kansas City. Call them today, 844-447-6600. Tell them you heard about it right here on Sports Radio 810 WHB, 844-447-6600, or visit heartlandmenshealth.com.